All right, we'll walk around holding by the book of Leviticus chapter 18. Again, want to walk around holding by the book of Leviticus chapter 18. We are still in verse 2. We're going to be there for, I don't know, quite some time. We'll see how far we get here. Again, chapter 18, verse 2, but verse 1 says, by the Ber Hashem Moshe Lemor, God spoke to the Jewish people, saying, the Ber B'nai Yisrael, V'yamart Aleim, Ani Hashem Elokeichem. So you should speak to the children of Israel and tell them what you shall say, that I'm the eternal your God, right? I am the Lord your God. Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, I am the Lord your God. Very good. So Rashi there says, as we said before, that I am the Lord your God, and you've accepted my kingship, right? You've accepted my kingship, and it was made known that in the days of Ezra, that there were revolts against restrictions of sexual relations, which this whole chapter is pretty much about. As the next verse says, don't go after the ways of the Egyptians, do not go after the ways of the Canaanites. We'll speak about that, exactly what that means. And in any case, that's what the verse says. That's what Rashi over there says. Now, we're in the middle of this Or Chaim HaKadosh, one of the great commentaries more than 100 years ago. And we've been speaking about basically the fact that the mind, somebody sees something, and the mind sort of grabs it, makes it part of your psyche, makes it part of your soul. So we've been speaking for a number of weeks, a lot of different classes also, about this idea that what I see has an effect, and it has an effect on my soul. And it has such an effect, whatever picture a person sees, right? Just like a recording now, it's recorded in the soul, right? Now, it doesn't mean it's going to manifest itself. Doesn't mean, it could be, buried there for, I don't know, for years, for decades, right? But, one day it may come out, whatever it may be, right? Whatever, maybe it's a song, maybe it's an image, maybe, I don't know, person, an old commercial or something, whatever, it's there, right? It's all part of our psyche. It never totally disappears. But it becomes part of our, becomes a part of our DNA. So we spoke, the last few weeks that basically the evil inclination can have a negative effect, certainly on a person. The at the end of the day, right? At the end of the day, we are affected by what we see. It does affect our soul, right? To a certain extent, even if it's very much buried. But he says there were two things here, right? There were two things here that, as he put it here, one thing is that person sees something, right? Then goes to his mind, thinks about it, connects, corresponding to his desires. And I don't need to say that if he has, if it has control over him, and he eats something from the evil, right? Now we're going to see what that means exactly. Meaning he's placed in the hands of his desires. If we don't work hard against our evil inclination, and again, we're going to speak quite a bit about that. So you are in the hands of your own, desire. So person is made up of body and soul. There's always conflict, as we've said many times, between body and soul. If a person goes only after the body, right, after base desires, then you debase the body, you debase the soul. If you go according to the soul, meaning according to spirituality, you want to tap into spirituality, you elevate the body, you elevate the soul. So basically, a person can have control over his nature. But again, what's going to be a mitigating factor. What's going to be hard over here? What's going to be hard is the evil inclination, right? The evil inclination going to try and overcome it. So that's why the Gemara says, in a place where Baalei teshuvah stands, a righteous person cannot stand. Baalei teshuvah meaning someone didn't grow up as an Orthodox Jew, grew up as a secular Jew, becomes an Orthodox Jew. They can't, someone who's truly righteous do not have the same trials and tribulations as someone who didn't grow up, necessarily in a religious household, meaning, someone who grew up, we'll call an FFB, right, from birth, religious from birth, they're not going to have the desire to eat treif, right? They're not going to have that, it's not going to desire, they're going to have, right, to eat something, not kosher. It's not like, it's not in their realm of reality to think about, right? So you'll say, well, someone who always, has these desires, right, whatever these desires are, that a righteous person wouldn't have. So you would think they're on a higher level. You would think, right, because here the Gemara says that in a place where these people stand, people who come back to Judaism, a righteous person can't stand. So we mentioned that when it comes to the Rivka Imenu. Rivka has two sons fighting inside the womb, and she goes to the Shiva Shem and Aver to ask what's going on. So he says, so they say, wow, you got two nations fighting inside you, etc. Yeah, very good. So whatever explains, what's going on. Now, both of them, both Yitzchak and Rivka pray, and Yitzchak's prayer is answered first, right? So we mentioned that why is Yitzchak's prayer answered first? Because he comes from a father that was righteous, a grandfather that was righteous. Now, Rivka, her father wasn't righteous, right? So he wasn't righteous. So why don't we say we listen to her prayers first? Right? She went through a lot more difficult, a lot more difficulty, growing up than certainly Yitzchak. Yitzchak was born, in the house of someone righteous, right? Both parents, were righteous. Rivka didn't have that, right? Certainly didn't have that. So you'll say her prayer should have been listened to first because she struggled a lot more, right? She came from, let's say, worse pedigree, so to speak, right? So what does the Gemara say? The Gemara says, in a place where Baalei teshuvah stands, a righteous person cannot stand. So in this case, a righteous person, right? A righteous person not going to have, they're on a higher level. They're on a much higher level. Whatever their desires are, it's not the same as someone who, has this desire, I don't know, to watch ball games, to watch, go to movies, to do other things, whatever it may be. So a person that's gone through those trials, definitely can reach a high level. But someone who continues to grow, even if they were born that way, even if their, family is religious, their cousins are religious, all their relatives, let's say, more or less are religious, don't they have it easy? They have it easier, right? 100%. They have it easier, but there's one difference. There's one difference. That person who grew up in a totally religious family, so every year, it comes to making Passover, okay, they're going to clean, they're going to help, other things. It's not like, there's a test not to have Passover. There's a test, dealing with non-religious family and all that. They don't have that, right? Most likely they don't have that. What's their test, right? They can have other tests, doesn't matter. But what's the main test? What's the main test by them? The main test by them is they grew up this way, right? They've been learning since they were kids. So it's not like they don't know what Passover is. They don't know what, Sukkot is. They don't know, the ins and outs of the holiday and this and that. So what's the trial? What's one of the main trials? To keep what they do fresh. In other words, we say every day before the paragraph before the Shema, we say that God is Machadesh B'chol Yom Tamid, that God renews, present tense. God renews, not he renewed in the past. God continues to renew creation, right? Every day. If God didn't do that, God sort of disappeared for a split second. The world goes back, Genesis chapter 1, verse 2, right? Back to that original chaos, right? Kind of the back of that Led Zeppelin album. Anyone know what I'm talking about, right? Regardless of that, the world wouldn't exist. So God constantly renews creation. By renewing creation, it keeps everything going. Present tense. So everything in present tense. So why do I mention that? Because somebody, who grows up religious, right? And the question comes up quite a bit, and that is even someone in the process, whether they convert, they don't convert, doesn't really matter, right? But they've been doing things for so long, however long it is, how do they keep it lit? Right? How they keep it lit? Right? How do they keep that fire lit? Right? So that being the case, that's harder. Right? I would say that's harder. In other words, if a person knew, and let's say better, a person grew up, with a religious family, religious siblings, religious in-laws, religious cousins, whatever. Wouldn't it be much easier? I'm not going to say it's a given, right? It should be, right? But, Torah's not an inheritance, the Gemara says, right? You got to fight for Torah. So wouldn't we say it's much easier for a person to go in that path and have all kinds of problems from, let's say from in-laws, from siblings, from cousins, from friends, all this? Isn't that going to be harder? Sure, it's going to be harder. Everyone's tearing you in a different direction, right? Everyone's trying to convince you that you should be like everybody else, right? 100%, you should be like everybody else. Why change? Why be different? And what are they going to do? Right? What are they going to do? They are going to bring you down more than you'll convince them. Sometimes you might convince them, but in general, they're going to have a greater effect on you. So that's a greater test. That seemingly is a greater test. The difference is like this, right? The difference is like this, that somebody who's born religious, right? Well, let's say somebody's been religious for 20 years, for 30 years. They don't have the same test they had before. The test is very different. Okay. But someone who's been on that path since they were born, and everything around them, everything's going in the same direction. Very good. So where's the test? In other words, going in that same direction, keeping that fire lit, it's not really the topic here, right? But it's spoken about in different contexts, different platforms, doesn't matter. But the point is, keeping that fire lit is not an easy thing, right? They deserve all the respect, right? They'll say, a person came back to Torah and everyone's fighting against them to keep Torah mitzvahs. True, that's hard, right? But if you don't have that test, and your test is, okay, I got to wake up today, or I'm going to wake up tomorrow, I'm going to keep doing what I've been doing, over the years, how does that person stay away from burnout, right? That's, or even someone in the process, of conversion, day in and day out, you're doing the same thing, you're learning, you're trying this, that, how, on a daily basis, we have trials, we have all kinds of trials, very good. But how does a person keep that fire lit, right? If someone's born that way, been doing this for, 25 years, 30 years, they go according to the track that they're supposed to go, everything's good, They're doing all the right things, but you have to have the fire lit, right? You have to be inspired. So even in what we're going to call Lithuanian yeshivas, they learn Hasidus or different books of, of inspiration. Why? Because this generation needs it. That, definitely needs it. To read the Nesiva Shalom, right? Nesiva Shalom is a book written by Baba Rebbe of blessed memory, right? Things that are going to inspire. They learn Tanya, from the Lubavitcher Rebbe, right? It's a mixture of Hasidus and, Kabbalah, but obviously, you got to be more steeped in Hasidus before, you would touch the book, right? I would say a better book to learn, first would be go through, Derech Hashem, go through the way of God, right? It speaks about why God created the world, purpose of man, purpose of the nation, how the evil inclination works, spiritual forces. Yeah, so I've given class on that many times, right? It's a game changer, right? It's an absolute game changer. Why do people need this though? Right? Because obviously, if someone is coming, just you're sitting and learning, you're going through, you're going through Gemara, you're going through, later commentaries, early commentaries, going through halacha, this and that. Okay, a person can be inspired, a person, they can enjoy it, the give and take, and this and that, very good. At some point, the person can say, well, I've gone through this, I've gone through that, I've gone through the other thing, right? So like, they're not living, they're not necessarily living inspired, doing things, by rote. And when a person does things by rote, we've mentioned many times, that's akin to spiritual death. No one is happy being mediocre, right? It's not a question, of being, mediocre. It says Rav Cutler, blessed memory, started the yeshiva in Lakewood. It brings down in Mishnah's Rav Aaron, and on it brings us down, I think, by Shavuos. In Shmuz, he says by Shavuos, right? And that's and that is, you got to live inspired, right? You have to have goals. You have to have fixed goals. When a person learns, right? Obviously, affect men more than women. Not only that, you should learn what you enjoy, right? It's a good way not to get burnt out. It's not, it's not easy. People would tell me, when I was younger, it's like, oh, come on, you don't do very much. You sit and learn all day. It's great, 10 hours a day. You want to do it? I don't think you'd last more than, a couple of days, maybe a day, right? It's kind of taxing on the brain, right? You're making, interesting inferences and picking details and, and all that. Very good, right? But you got to live inspired, right? So, so even today, you have, let's say, with Lithuanian type Jews that will, learn things that are inspiring because they need to be inspired. So maybe, my Hasidic side here coming out a little bit. Maybe, we should sing and dance, a little bit more, but you got to know what you're living for, right? You have to know what our purpose is and, what the goal is. So maybe you tell me sometimes things are more interesting, maybe things are less interesting, right? Maybe that may be the case. It doesn't matter. You got to remember. If a person's not driven, you'll just fall by the wayside. A person will crack at some point because, either, they don't enjoy the learning, or after a while, they just say, okay, I'm doing what everyone else, is doing. They don't necessarily see, something coming from their learning. Right. That's why, I would have said many years ago that, someone's learning full time. Right. So, if a guy is learning full time, I would say, at some point, maybe, better, learn in the morning and like tutor or try and teach in the afternoon. Right. Give someone, maybe enjoyment from their learning, that they can actually give over to others. But not everyone has that merit, because in order to explain something, it doesn't have to be something so complex, but in order to explain something to someone else, if you can't explain it to a 5-year-old, right, or a 10-year-old, does not mean that you have dominance over what you're learning. So not everyone who has the ability to learn has the ability necessarily to give over. But at the same time, says Rabbi Cheskel Abramsky, he was the head of the base in London. and came in his later years here to Israel. And it would say, people learn and they think, if they don't have a job, they don't have what they call a steller in Yiddish. They don't have they don't have a teaching job or something. They're sitting and learning. They're like, another number, number on the bench, so to speak. They're not doing anything. They don't feel, they don't have a title. They don't have something. They don't feel, like they're accomplishing. He says, why? He said, why should that be? He said, a person has to understand. First, they have to understand that the Mishnah Pirkei Avos, the beginning of Pirkei Avos and Ethics of Our Fathers, Mishnah 1, Chapter 1, says there are three things keeping up the world. Right at the end of the Mishnah, it says three things keeping up the world: Torah, Avodah, and Gimel Chasodim. Right? Torah is what we understand as Torah. Right? We'll get back to Torah. Right? You have Torah. You have avoda, can either mean the temple service, right, or service to God, and you have gimel chesed, right? Gimel chasadim means doing acts of loving kindness, right? But even without the latter, even without, let's say, gimel chasadim, and even without even without avoda, what do I have? Torah. Right? In other words, the world is being established every second of every day because there are Jews learning Torah. Now, so you go back to Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, right? Breshis bara Elokim es hashamayim ve'es haaretz. God created the heavens and the earth, right? God created the heavens and the earth. What is the first word, Bereshis? What's the root of the word? Very hard to translate. Usually they translate it in the beginning of God's creating, right? Or translate in the beginning of creation. Now, what's the problem, right? Rashi there are a lot of Rashis there, and a lot of times there he explains. I can't explain simple explanation. I have to explain according to a homiletic interpretation, i.e., according to a medrash. Why? Now, the question over here is, what's the root of the word? You can tell me. The root of the word is bet reish aleph, to create. The word bara means to create, right? The only problem is that's the second word. Reish is bara. Now, if you say in the beginning, right? Reish, it means really in the beginning. But if you say it means creation, I already have the next word. It's creation. It's creating. Right? You can say in the beginning of God's creation, but it's like in the beginning of creation, right? It's kind of hard to translate, right? So you got the root of the word is bet reish aleph, or you can tell me really bet is the first word, is the first letter in the alphabet, but really the word it's really before the word, means in, right? Bet before a word, Hebrew grammar for everybody, right? Means in, usually means in, right? Babayis means in the house, right? Barachov means in the street. Now, bereshit, I got be and I get reshit. What does reshit mean? The first. Literally means the first, right? So Rashi goes into a whole bunch of different, explanations. Who's called the first? Jewish people are called the first. Right, Chala's called the first, other things, whatever. He goes through a lot of different explanations. Right, so it's very hard, very hard to translate. But what's the point? What's the point? You get to the end of creation, and every day, the Torah says this is what happened. A first day. This is what happened. A second day. This is what happened. A third day. A fourth day. A fifth day. Oh, it gets to the sixth day. And when it says the sixth day, it says the sixth day. What do you mean the sixth day? Every other day it says first day, a second day, a third day. What do you mean the? Why is there a hey? It says biyom hashishi. The sixth day. What sixth day? Why do you have an extra hey? You don't need the hey. The hey doesn't belong there. Right? Commentary says, what's the hey doing there? So Rashi says, very simple. Very simple. The sixth day, what's the sixth day represents? You can tell me sixth day of creation. Okay. right? That'd be simple explanation. But again, even if you tell me these 6 days, very good. Yeah, but it's not consistent with the other 5 days. So Rashi says these 6 days, the Gemara tells us, what does the 6th day represent? 6th day of Sivan. What's 6th day of Sivan? 6th day of Sivan is day of Matan Torah, given to the Torah, day of Shavuot. Right? Some say it was the 6th day, some say it was the 7th day. The whole question that the Gemara goes through, whether it's really the 6th day or 7th day, doesn't matter. But what happened? What happened? Rashi says God's waiting for someone to accept the Torah. God sees in the future. Obviously, God knows the future, doesn't matter. But God sees the future. What's he going to say? I need someone to accept the Torah before everything can be established. Who's going to accept the Torah? The Jewish people. The Gemara says, and the Medrash says, right? And then the Gemara says the Avodah Zarah 2b to 3a. Gemara says God goes to all the nations. Ask every nation, you want the Torah? They say, what's written in it? Once they find out what's written in it, they say, no, we're not interested. God comes to Jewish people, said, you want to know what's written in the Torah? He said, you want the Torah? They say, Na'aseh v'nishma. They say, we will do, and then we'll hear what it's all about. So Jewish people come and accept the Torah. So God knows. God absolutely knows the Jewish people are going to accept the Torah. Okay. So Rashi says, what happened to all creation? What happened the first day, second day, third day? What? And nothing was solidified? So it seems everything was in suspended animation. Meaning everything was there, everything's ready to go. And then you get to the 6th day, everything gets solidified. Why does it get solidified? Because God understands, even he knows past, present, and future. He knows the Jewish people are going to accept the Torah. Very good. Since he knows the Jewish people are going to accept the Torah, what happens? Then everything gets solidified. Right? Now, based on that, he needed someone to accept the Torah. Because Bereshis means the Torah, right? Could mean the Torah, right? Rashi says. But if it means the Torah, someone has to accept it. Someone has to come and say, we're going to keep it. So anyone could have joined, the Ramchal says in Derech Hashem, in the way of God, anyone could have joined, been part of the Jewish people up until there was a gvul, there was a limit, there was a boundary. Says the Ramchal, I guess according to Kabbalah, anyone could have joined up until the Tower of Babel. Once you add the Tower of Babel, that was it. That was it. That was your chance. But the Ramchal says God had mercy. So what did God do? God allowed anyone who wanted to join, wanted to, be part of it. They could have joined up until the giving of the Torah. Once God gave the Torah, that's it. Then anyone who didn't join, or is not part of the tribe, so to speak, then they have to go through conversion for better or for worse. Right? They'll have to go through conversion. I had somebody once tell me, someone says, but I wouldn't have rejected the Torah, so why do I have to go through conversion? Had I been in that generation of my great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, I never would have accepted Torah. And I said, it doesn't matter what you would have done. Nobody cares what you would have done. Nobody cares what I would have done. The fact is they didn't want the Torah. So if they rejected the Torah, you got to go through conversion. So this person said, I don't understand. Why would God, why would God want me to desecrate Shabbos? Right? The Gemara says, a non-Jew to keep Shabbos liable for death penalty. That's if they keep it like a Jew. Well, this person didn't want to desecrate Shabbos. I said, are you Jewish? No. Sharing Jewish blood? No. Okay, so they have to go through conversion. Fine. But I can't imagine this is what God wants. That God would want me to desecrate Shabbos on purpose. Now I can guarantee, between that or without a vow, I'm pretty sure I can guarantee most people desecrate Shabbos by accident. They don't know the laws. Or they don't know the laws well enough, let's say. Right? But that's not good enough. A non-Jew in the process of conversion has to do something on purpose to, to desecrate Shabbos. That's what they have to do. They cannot keep it like it, they cannot keep it like a Jew. So the person kept coming back. This person kept saying, I can't believe that's what God wants. Back and forth. Finally, I said, okay. It doesn't matter what you would have done in that generation. The fact is, you got to go through conversion. Good. So the Gemara says, very clear, you want to keep it like a Jew. You say I shouldn't desecrate Shabbos. Okay. The rabbis tell us, the big mitzvah, listen what the rabbis tell us. The rabbis tell us if you do that, and you keep Shabbos exactly like a Jew, and you keep the festivals exactly like a Jew, without desecrating, without doing something desecrated on purpose, death penalty. That's it. Checkmate. You want to do what you want to do? Okay. Right? But obviously God's not going to be happy with, I can't imagine God will want me to do that. All right, so let's make clear. Look at Exodus chapter 20. Exodus chapter 20 tells me I have an obligation to keep Shabbos, right? And in other places it says there are three things that are assigned between God and the Jewish people. One of them is Shabbos, one of them is circumcision, one of them is tefillin, or phylacteries, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, the Torah calls Shabbos a sign, an oath, a sign between God and the Jewish people. Now, it's very clear. The Ten Commandments were given to who? To the Jewish people. They were given the Ten Commandments, right? That's pretty clear in front of 3 million people or 2 million people, right? Between 2 and 3 million people. Very good. So it's a sign between God and the Jewish people. Now, it comes along a non-Jew, right? So now they say, I want to participate in Shabbos as a Noah, right? As someone who's not going to convert, right? Now, I would ask you a very simple question. A very simple question. Does Shabbos apply to you as a non-Jew? If you're going to convert, I can understand. You have to learn what to do. So you have to keep its laws. You have to do something on purpose to break it. Very good. As a non-Jew who's not going to convert, right? Does that apply or not? Doesn't apply. The Torah says very clear, it's a sign between God and the Jewish people. But a person will say, but I want to participate. Right? So I would say very simple. If you wanted to participate, then convert. Then go through conversion. I don't want to convert. I still want to eat shrimp. Okay. Had somebody tell me that once. I said, fine. You don't want to convert. It's good. You don't have to convert. You can still eat shrimp. Very good. Right? But what's the bottom line here? It's a sign between God and the Jewish people. You're coming along and saying, I want to participate. You're a thief. What gives you the right to participate in something that doesn't belong to you? Doesn't belong to you. Yeah, but we don't have so many mitzvahs. I want to tap in this and that. Okay. There are ways to tap in. I get old classes on this and no I'd was. There are ways to tap in the right way. Right? But tapping in as a Jew would, let's say like this. A person would want to refrain from doing certain categories that are forbidden on Shabbos. Like a Jew. They won't write. They won't drive in a car. Let's say, on Shabbos. Oh, come on. That doesn't apply to you. You want to have a nice meal Friday night. Okay. That's not a problem. You want to have a nice, a nice lunch, Saturday lunch. Okay. Right. Also not a problem. Once you start straddling that path, right, and straddling the boundaries and doing things that don't belong to you, serious repercussions. Serious repercussions. I'm not saying you can't tap in your own way. You can. There are ways to do it, right? But, to say, I'm not going to write on Shabbos, right? Or to say, I'm not going to use electricity, even better. I'm not going to use electricity. There are people like that, right? I know someone, with a no-hide. He says, well, I like to get together with certain people, but they don't drive on Shabbos. That's kind of crazy. Why not? Doesn't apply to them. Once you start refraining from doing things that Jews do, then the Rambam says, and others will say the same thing, this is called Hidushei Das. Hidushei Das means I'm making up a new religion. That is forbidden, right? That you're not allowed to do. Now, some people would say, I'll throw this out there, some people would say that the Muslims are closest or are de facto Noahites. In other words, they believe in one God, right? There is a minority opinion, but we're not going to go there because it doesn't matter. We don't hold this way. But there is a minority opinion that Islam is idolatry. Okay. For practical purposes, we don't hold that way, right? Doesn't matter. Now, even if I would agree, which I would agree, they believe in one God. Okay. Now, even if they believe in one God, what's the problem, right? Yeah, some would say, and again, I'll take issue with this because I don't think it's true, and that is that they are de facto Noahites. Now, all I have to do, and I'm not an expert by any stretch in Sharia law, all I have to do is find a place, find something that the Muslims do that go against the Noahide laws. All I have to do is find one. I mean, I'm not really interested in doing it, so it doesn't matter. But all you have to do is find one. Once you find one that doesn't coincide with the Noahide laws, they're knocked out. But I don't even have to do that. Why don't I have to do that? Because the Torah states clear. God says to the entire Jewish nation, you have to accept what Moshe says. You cannot go, I mentioned this last night also, right? You cannot go against what Moshe Rabbeinu says. Cannot go against his prophecy. So anyone who goes against his prophecy, even if they hold he's a prophet, but he goes against what the Torah says, and the Torah is forever, then that's a false religion. That is called, as the Rambam would say, that is called Chidushei Das. That is making up a new religion. So even if they were very close to being Noahites, let's say they are, doesn't really matter. You don't get out of the problem of Chidushei Das, right? Of making up a new religion. So, so it's really, it's really a moot point, right? But, the example I gave, last night, and common example I always give is Jeremiah chapter 30. Jeremiah chapter 30 says what? There's a new covenant. Very good. How can there be a new covenant? Logically, forget what the rabbis say. Logically, can't be a new covenant. Why not? Because you can't go against Moshe Rabbeinu. The covenant sticks. Even if we don't keep it, the covenant still sticks. So if you go so you have to read, because they take everything out of context, Christians. So you got to read the beginning of the chapter. What's the chapter talking about? What's Jeremiah screaming about? Is the whole book of Jeremiah is that the Jews should go back to the original Torah, start keeping the mitzvahs like they should. Otherwise, God's going to destroy the temple. They didn't believe him. They tried to kill him, other things, but they didn't believe the temple was still standing. Very good. So he wants them to connect to the old covenant. Very good. So it's a good question. Why call it a new covenant? Okay, good question. Right? Legitimate question. But you can't say it's related to anybody else. You can't say, this JC, new covenant, whatever. But you can't go against prophecy of Moshe Rabbeinu. You cannot go against it. If you go against it, you're out. That's making up a new religion. Even if I don't have to find flaws, in their books. Very easy to do, right? We don't have to do that. All they have to do is go against what Moses says. That's making up a new religion. So if Noahites do the same thing, they go too far, and there are some that go way too far. That's making up a new religion. That's definitely making up a new religion. Now, some people would say, okay, having Noahide communities is a bad thing. Right? There's no such thing. Okay, there are a few in the world, that do exist. Okay, right? But what's the complaint? The complaint would be that the more they learn, the more they want to do, they'll convert. They'll all convert. Some will. Some may end up converting. Okay, that may be true. That may be true. But someone's guiding them, then we'll get to that point, right? Meaning some will convert, right? And the others will stay. They'll stay Noahites, 100%. But you need someone to guide them. You don't have anyone to guide them. The problem with any of these communities anyway, with Noahites in general, just while I'm on the topic, is they're all spread out. They're not all in one place. There are a few communities in the world, right? But a lot of them are spread out. I know someone lives in a certain place. He said the closest Noahide to him is like 400 miles, right? It's like, a 6-hour drive. Can't even go have a cup of coffee or something. So for most Noahides, a lot of it is done online. Very good. It's done online. Yeah, it's better than nothing, right? But, if there would be proper guidance, there would be enough people to sustain, a community within, I would say, be better to be in striking distance. It doesn't mean you have to be in walking distance, but in striking distance of an Orthodox community, that would be better, right? Sometimes it can be done, sometimes it can't be done. Again, the problem is people all over the place, right? That's the problem, right? That's essentially the problem. So in theory, I would say, and others would disagree, but that's okay. I would say it's possible. it's potentially possible, right? As long as they have clear-cut guidelines. If they have clear-cut guidelines, they're not going to straddle both worlds. But now, some will end up converting. Okay, right? Some will end up converting. That's fine, right? But we're not, the whole community is not going to convert, right? I'm not, I think, it wouldn't be easy. I'm not going to say it'd be easy by any stretch. But if there was good enough guidance, you wouldn't have that issue. So the point is that if the brother wants to do something good, do not go beyond what you're supposed to do. That is going to run into problems. And that, according to the Rambam, would be a huge problem, right? And that would be that you are going against the grain, i.e., you're making up. You're making up a new religion, right? 100%, 100%. So as we said before, people that come back to Judaism, i.e., Baalei teshuvah, so they have different struggles. They have a lot of different struggles, which is true, right? Right? They have a lot of different struggles that righteous people don't. But at the end of the day, even someone who comes back to Judaism, can't be complacent either. So there's a joke. It's a bad joke, right? It's definitely a bad joke. But I'll put it out there. And the joke is, how do you know? How do you know that a Baal Tshuva's made it? Right? Someone who comes back to Judaism, how do you know they made it? In Orthodox society, how do you know they made it? He says because when they're reading the Torah, they talk. They talk in the middle of reading the Torah, right? It's a bad joke. Yeah, you shouldn't talk when the Torah is being read. It's a disgrace to the Torah. I was in one synagogue once, many years ago, and the rabbi of the synagogue during the reading of the Torah, keep banging on the lectern for people to be quiet so you can hear the reading of the Torah. I'm sure there are places like that. Most places are, you can hear a pin drop because you have to hear all the words, right? So, that's kind of an anomaly. But, in some places, it could be like that. It's a disgrace. There's certain decorum, like, the Torah scroll is being brought out. You stand up, you show respect. If it's being read, even more respect. You keep your mouth shut. Oh, I haven't seen this person in 5 years. I want to schmooze. Okay, so go schmooze outside. This is the wrong time, right? There's decorum. There is definitely decorum, when it comes to the synagogue. So, there's a question. Why during the Holocaust, why weren't Sephardic people hit during the Holocaust? Sephardic communities. So my Rebbe brings down from other people as well that he said that they had such respect for decorum in the synagogue that protected them, right? It's been in a Sephardic synagogue. You see how Sephardic people act. Sephardic people act in the synagogue in general. Don't tell me there are people that talk and they do this and do that. In general, they have 10 times greater respect in the synagogue than Ashkenazi Jews. It's just they have more respect. We should also have more respect. Not saying not, right? You want to speak about certain things, go outside. Doesn't matter, right? Shouldn't be speaking about politics or other things in a synagogue or a studio. That's not, you're there to learn. If it's there to make a point or whatever, it's one thing. But like to get off topic and speak about other things that you should never speak about in the synagogue. Yeah, I'm not talking about lashon hara or whatever. I'm just talking about things that, bring the holiness down. That's what it does. Right? So many say the same thing, that Sephardic people were not hit, not by the Enlightenment in general, right? And not by the Holocaust for that reason. For exactly that reason. Right? For exactly that reason. And, if anyone's ever been in, a Sephardic synagogue, you've seen Sephardic people, how they act in the synagogue in general. They have, seemingly a lot more respect for the synagogue itself than Ashkenazim do. All right, let me take a question here. Somebody asks, Somebody asked, why say in Deuteronomy God spoke to Moses face to face? You got to bring me a source for that. The Torah says in general. Torah says the book of Exodus, not that way. Right? Right? Says not that way. Right? God says, I want to see you face to face. Right? So God spoke to Moses like a person speaks to their friends. Okay, so what was that level of communication? Very good. He spoke to him, okay. But what does it mean face to face? Face to face simply means that you want to try and understand things in this world. You want to understand things in this world you'll never understand in 10 lifetimes. Maybe God will throw you a proverbial bone. Maybe. And maybe he'll show you how to connect the dots and show you this happened because of this, that happened because of that happened because of something else. Because God says no one can see my face and live. See my face means to understand what you're going through right now. Right? You can only understand me from the back. What does back mean? God doesn't have a back. Right? Doesn't have a face either. Right? It's just an anthropomorphism. Doesn't have a body, doesn't have a form. Right? So since God doesn't have a form, what do I understand? So you have to explain what it means. He says God has an outstretched arm. What does the outstretched arm mean? Power, force. Right? It's an anthropomorphism for us to get, an understanding, but it doesn't have a hand. Right? It doesn't have a form. Right? So now, seeing him face to face means you want to understand how he runs the world. I'll take it a step further. You don't have to come to Moses. God, what does Abraham say? Abraham says, I want to see your countenance. I want to see, I want to see your glory, so to speak. And what does God say? What does God say over there? God says your progeny will go down to a country not their own. They're going to suffer. And I'm going to take them out. And I'm going to take them out in a great way. But they're going to suffer. What did he do wrong? Moses didn't get punished for that. Moses said, I want to see face to face. I want to understand. What's the difference? Abraham said a similar thing. So the Gemara says that certain things that he did, that because he wanted to understand that, he got punished. His progeny got punished. But in any case, without really delving into that, the point is seeing God face to face means I want to understand what I'm going through now. And I get this question all the time. Right? I'm not singling anyone out because over the years, a lot of people have asked the question. I'm going through X. I'm going through Y. I'm going through all these things. What's the measure for measure? Because we believe, beyond the shadow of a doubt, there's measure for measure, right? God's going to punish somebody in the way that they're acting, the exact same way. Now, we don't always understand it. We could be punished for something we did 2 months ago, 6 months ago, a year ago. God has a lot of compassion. God has a lot of patience. Right? So what a person did today, you might not see the repercussions till later, but you won't necessarily make the connection. Right? Very hard, to make that connection. But I would say like this. I would say, even if, and I understand, people want to understand what they're going through. People want to understand the difficulties that they have. Question always comes up, why was I born in a non-Jewish body? Good question. Why was I born to this family? Good question. Yeah. So, we're not privy to this information. Born in a certain body, right? The soul goes in a certain body. We don't have a choice who our parents are, siblings are. You're born against your will, you die against your will. The Mishnah Perkei Avos says in Ethics for Our Fathers, but Kaufman would say in parentheses, you still have to live. You're not in control of that. Totally not in control. But even so, I would say, again, my opinion for what it's worth, you take it with a grain of salt, but I would say, let's say, through an intermediary, God came to you in a dream, whatever it is. And God says, I'm going to lay you out the cards why you're going through what you're going through. And he tells you, because you did this is the repercussion. You did that, this is the repercussion. Now, if I was a betting man, I'm a big man of statistics, right? I would think, again, my opinion, I would think if someone had a revelation, a true revelation, And God spelled it out, black and white. You want to know why you're suffering over here? Because you did this, or you did that, or you did the other thing. I'm not so convinced that someone is going to be much happier knowing what it is. We can probably guess, even if we don't understand the measure for measure. Everybody sins. Some people sin more, some people sin less, people at a higher level, so they get punished more, or it's a more severe punishment. But I'm not so convinced, and again, other people could disagree. I'm not so convinced if someone knew the absolute truth and it hit them right here, right between the eyes, and they understand 100% why they have to go through it and what's going on, not so sure they'd be so happy. They'd be kicking themselves. Oh, I can't believe, it's for that, or it's for this, or, we can imagine. We can probably imagine what things may be for. We may be wrong. We may be totally wrong, right? But this question comes up all the time. I want to know the measure for measure. Yeah, and how it works. So I would say like this. If God opened our eyes for a split second, only a split second, and he would show us why this happened, why that happened, why the other thing, and all the different calculations that go into what happened and what the ramifications are. The person would drop dead of a heart attack. You wouldn't fathom it. Why things happen like this. Why did, why do, one point, Turkey knocks down a Russian airplane. Want to start World War III with Russia. Come on, Turkey's not a world power. No one's ever going to think they're a world power. You want to start up with Russia? Okay, Russia getting beaten down. Whatever. It doesn't really matter, right? That could have been the beginning of World War III. Who knows? Because the Vilna Gaon said, his students say in his name, that if Russia goes into Constantinople, which is Turkey, right, which is Turkey as we understand it, you don't take off your Shabbos clothes, meaning that the Messiah is coming right after. That happened, I think, during World War I or maybe World War II, right, at some point, but it doesn't matter. That was the version that his students said in the name of the Vilna Gaon. Now, think about it. A Russian airline goes over Turkish airspace. Turkish pilots call it down. They don't listen. They don't understand, whatever it is, and they blew it out of the sky. They blew it out of the sky. Yeah. Now, it wasn't like he was so repentant either. Oh, I'm so sorry. I can't believe that, whatever. It got blown over after a while. But, people were talking that you have this event, and if Russia goes in and invades Turkey, according to the students of the Vilna Gaon, Messiah is imminent. The Messiah is imminent. I remember, during that time, Rabbi spoke about it, other people spoke about it, about this going, okay, it didn't happen. In the end, it didn't happen. But you think about it. What could have happened? Potentially. Everyone spoke about that when Russia went into Ukraine. Same thing. It's going to be World War III. Right? That's not what he wants. He wants to make Russia look better, wants to take more, parts of, other quote unquote countries that I think belong to the motherland, so to speak. Okay. He's not looking for World War III. That's what he wants. He's a mega ego maniac, okay. Or whatever you call it, whatever type of maniac he is. Okay, but he doesn't have a death sentence. That's not what he wants. Certainly not what he wants. But people are talking. He's got, they got nuclear weapons, this and that. And who knows what's going to be, right? So you look at these events and you say, like, what's going on here? Right? What in the world's going on? What could it lead to? Everyone agrees, by the way, we are in the end of days. No, nobody disagrees, right? How it's going to manifest itself? Okay, that's a good question. Well, the Messiah has to come at some point within the next 200 some odd years, right? Because the world's only going to be around for 6,000 years. Right, 1,000 years for each day of creation. Then you got another 1,000 years before the world gets destroyed, and then you get resurrection of the dead. Whatever goes on during that time. But at the end of the day, the Messiah can come in peaceful ways, or God can make an evil king like Haman, put him. Everyone repents, and the Messiah can come in a better way, right? In a harder way. It can come either way, right? If we do what we're supposed to do, it'll come in an easier way. If we don't do what we're supposed to do, we see. right? The writing's on the wall, right? Seemingly it's going to come the harder way. That's, if I was a betting person, I would put all the money I don't have. That's what I would say. But, nobody knows. But there's so many things that go on in the world that are going on behind the scenes nobody knows about, right? Or, everything's covered up and who knows what. So, we have no idea. One thing we do know, right? One thing we do know, Lev Malachim B'Yad Hashem. That's what we know. The hearts of kings are in the hands of God. God's pulling the strings. He's using these people as puppets. Because you can ask the question, a very easy question. Why all of a sudden, the last year and a half or so, why all of a sudden Putin decides to go in Ukraine? What reason? Someone said something? Someone did something? You can have different, pundits say this, they say that. They'll give their own opinion about what they, you got these quote unquote experts. They'll give their own opinion why they think this is gonna, think why it happened, why it didn't happen, this and that. Okay, they give their opinion, but guess what? They don't know. It's all called speculation. They don't know, right? They'll say, "Oh, the factor led to this, and this led to that." Who's pulling the strings? Who's pulling the strings? God's pulling the strings. Now, what does he want out of this? Good question. That's a very good question. Now, from a Jewish perspective, the only thing we care about is that the Jews in Ukraine get out. Right? That's what we care about. There's, within Ukraine and within the former Soviet Union, unbelievable amounts of Jewish blood spilled in these places. So, everyone in the West says, "Oh, what do you mean? Ukraine's the underdog, right? You got to support Ukraine." By the Jewish people, they're butchers as much as the Russians are butchers. So if they kill each other, okay, so what? Let them kill each other. Yeah. To us, doesn't really matter because there's so much Jewish blood, that's been spilled there. It's been spilled in Europe, right? All over Europe. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But everyone looks like the Ukrainians, like, okay, I understand, a lot of people being killed, being displaced. Russia's a big bully and this and that. Ukrainians are not, they're not choir boys there, by any stretch. I know a few people that grew up in the Ukraine. One went to America, one came back, one came here, and both have absolutely zero good things to say, about the Ukraine, and about how they grew up and everything else. So, it's horrific for the Jews that are there and Jews that are stuck there. Yeah. Right. But, everyone was claiming, everyone there Muslim, it's going to work, it's going to be World War III. Right. You got nuclear weapons, this and that. Okay. Then, still, stand still, whatever. Hopefully it ends sometime soon or whatever. But you have to ask the question, why'd they go in? Why'd they go in then? Why'd they go in 5 years ago? Why'd they go in 10 years ago? Why didn't they wait another 5 years? See, before the Messiah comes, a lot of things have to happen. So what ends up happening, the Chofetz Chaim says, right, in the era before the Messiah comes, which we're living in now, generations go by very quick. Like every couple of years, you have a generation. Things are speeding up very fast. Technology, other things going very, very fast. So I remember giving a class, a bunch of 18, 19-year-olds, and I was mentioning this Chofetz Chaim, that generations, move very quick. So someone asked me, come on, what does that mean for us? Right? What does that mean for us today? Right? So I told them, I said, okay. I said, let me put it to you this way. I said, at that time, I was only a generation and a half, more or less, removed from these guys. So I said, I grew up without Microsoft Windows. 3 people fainted. Like, they couldn't imagine. Microsoft Windows. Like, what you use, an abacus? Like a slide rule? Like, come on. They couldn't imagine. I told them a story when I was in university, when I went to college. After the first semester, a friend of mine brings a computer to school. What was the computer? Commodore 64, right? Everyone remembers, right? The RS-80, or they call it the Trash 80, Whatever, 128K. Come on. Phones have more than that today. It's a joke, right? So technology's gone very quick. So I remember, I had Windows 3.1, anyone who remembers back in the day. And I refused to get the Windows 95 until nothing worked. So basically, I almost had nothing that worked. Bad upgrade. And no choice, nothing worked, right? So like these guys couldn't imagine, right? How quick technology has moved, right? I'm not saying, there are good things about it. There are bad things about it, right? There are bad things about it. Someone says, all history, almost like he's been dangled on a string. No, not only dangled on a string, but there is I would say there's a Messiah in every generation. Spark of a Messiah. Let's say that person dies as the Messiah, but the generation wasn't worthy. So that spark goes into someone else. Always going to be someone who has the potential to be the Messiah in every generation. Now, when the Jewish people merit it, the Messiah will come. When we don't merit it, so he won't come. So there have been times in history that people thought after World War II, the War of Gog and Magog, so many people died. Many people thought that the Messiah is coming then. And then that didn't happen. Right. So, it's anybody's guess. It has to happen soon. Right. Again, with the next 200 years, I would say it's going to happen much quicker than that. But, at the end of the day, nobody knows. Nobody really knows. Whoever does, whoever knows really is insane. But in general, there's also one person generation who knows where all the vessels are of the temple, right? One person is given that information, in every generation. They pass it on before they die to someone else. Now, some of those vessels, maybe in the Vatican, because it seems pretty clear it took a lot of them to the Vatican. Vatican, definitely deny it, but as I heard Roberto Wine, it should be well. Right, one of the foremost Jewish historians, would say, there are a lot of rooms in the Vatican. You never know, you do spring cleaning, what you might find there. But it should be clear they should have it. They should have some of them, right? Some of them are buried here. The Ark of the Covenant, where the tablets are buried deep underneath the Temple Mount, right? So that no one will ever get. I was just learning something about that today, right? That's with that last part of the wall that's still up. Right underneath the Temple Mount is where the Holy of Holies is. Very good, and that's where the Ark is. Right, that's where the Ark of the tablets are. Very good. But that's like buried deep, deep, deep. No one's going to get to it. Right? Nothing will get to it. So, that's relatively safe. But what about all the other vessels? Where are they? Again, some are probably in the Vatican. I think that's the Gemara seems to bring that out. Others bring that out as well. Right. So, that's not rocket science, but I think not all of them are there. When Achashverosh had his party for 180 days, what was he showing off? Vessels of the temple. Right? He was showing off different things. That they had. So now the question is, did he have everything? Doesn't seem like it. Doesn't seem like they took everything. Other things got hidden. Okay, but again, nobody knows. Right? Nobody knows. Right? Nobody knows. So at the end of the day, whoever knows ain't talking. But as we mentioned before, there's a Malbim. And the Malbim says it's going to be one of the great commentaries more than 100 years ago. The Malbim says it's going to be a great war between Gog and Magog. Who's Gog and Magog? Gog, one of them is the Western world, Edom, represents the Western world, Esav, and against Islam, against Yishmael. And you see that today. Then you got the Western world fighting against Islam. Right now, it doesn't have to be that way. Side could come any number of ways, right? But if you see what's going on, just what's going on right now, that's I would say that seems pretty clear. Before 9/11, you wouldn't think that. And even if he would have said it, hundreds of years ago, people would have thought he's a crackpot. Right? He said 100 years ago, it's hard to imagine. More than 100 years ago. Why? Because the Muslims never had any power. They didn't have anything. Bunch of nomads, bunch of Bedouins. They didn't have anything. All of a sudden they got oil, they got rich, other things. Okay. Yeah, he was talking a time before that. So you would have said, okay, very nice. I have no idea what he means, right? I have no idea what he's talking about. But, after 9/11, it became clear, right? All of a sudden, everything started to make sense. When they were blasting the heck out of Afghanistan, trying to find bin Laden, I said, it's not a war against Islam. Well, Europe's got a serious problem. They got serious minorities of Muslims there creating havoc. And now they're bringing in other migrants creating havoc. The problem in Canada, other places. I mean, it's a powder cake. The whole world's a powder cake, right? So you see what the Malbim says, again, does that mean 100% is going to happen that way? I'm not saying it will. I'm not saying it will, but I think the writing's on the wall. There's a medrash, mentioned medrash before, there's a medrash in Psalms that says, now not everyone believes it's going to be war of Gog and Magog. Some claim the war, World War I and World War II took care of that. It's going to be more of a spiritual war, not a physical war, right? But that's kind of hard to explain according to the prophets who say that you're going to be burying people for 8 months, and a third of the world's going to get destroyed. Right, and a third of the world's going to survive, a third's going to be injured. I mean, it's going to be a bloodbath. 8 months, you're talking about 240, 250 days or less, every single day burying bodies. So that would mean it's not nuclear. Okay, right? So there's a medrash that says it's going to be a war. Who's going to start with? The king of Paras. Where's Paras today? Iran. Again, you see that, they ain't backing down. Yeah, they're not looking so good right now. Proxies have been, kind of demolished a little bit. I still got the Houthis shooting rockets here and there, but again, they're nothing. Just a bunch of ragtag people you can't get to because they're hiding under the ground and whatever. So it's a little more difficult to get to them. Okay, right? But they got proxies all over. They got hidden cells all over. So could it happen that way? Could happen a lot of ways, right? Not only that. So the Medrash says that the Jewish people aren't even going to be in Israel. That the Messiah is going to have to bring Jewish people. They're going to be thrown in the desert. And Messiah is going to bring them in. Very good. So I remember my Rebbe telling me this. He had a big smile. I'm like, what are you smiling at? I said, I'm not going to be there. You're also going to be in the desert, right? What's going to be? So the question is, do we take it literally or not? So it's very hard to imagine. I mean, we do have nuclear weapons. Don't tell anyone, right? Very hard to imagine that, now that we have the land of Israel, that we're not going to be here, right? On the other hand, you saw over the last 20 years, Israel tried to give away a good part of the West Bank, quote unquote, right? Quote unquote, the West Bank would have been totally indefensible. They could have given the land back, could have got spit out that way. Could have easily got spit out that way. So, if you have a left-wing government, who knows what they could do? They'll sell us out, just like they sold out people in Gush Katif down south. Look what happened, right? Made into a major war zone there. So, nobody knows, right? Definitely, nobody knows. So somebody points out, you're in the wrong side of history here, right? Maybe it's time to calm down. It's getting worse. It's not going to calm down. It's powder keg ready to explode. Not going to be, the Messiah is going to come and settle the score, right? When it looks like Jewish people are about to get annihilated, right? But it doesn't sound in any way, shape, or form is going to settle down. I mean, listen, Trump, for whatever he's doing, trying to make peace in Ukraine and, and all that, and trying to get Hamas to bow out. But, not an easy thing either way. Give him credit for trying, right? But, you're dealing with people broken every single, every single, agreement that they've made. So, it seemingly, unfortunately, seems, I don't want to be too pessimistic, but seems that it get worse before it gets better. But someone can say, well, there'll be a whole repentance movement. Well, it's a whole repentance movement, so then it can come in a totally different way. It could, right? It could. I'm not a big what do you call it? What do you call it? I'm not a big believer. I'm not a big believer that's going to come that way. I'm not saying it can't. I'm not saying it can't. But what it looks, what it looks like now, definitely what it looks like now, it it definitely doesn't like that. Yeah, let me see other questions here. Someone here says one of the reasons everyone wants the Messianic age to start. Well, it started already. Everyone agrees it started. That's not the question, right? Everyone agrees it started. right? A lot of signs that's definitely started. They want it to end. That's what they want. They want it to end. Because the coming of the Messiah is like the birth pains of a woman giving birth. Painful. It's painful. It's scary. Right? It's definitely scary. There's no question. So, we do want it to end. We also want to survive, right? And part of surviving is that you believe in God the right way, keep what you're supposed to, give or take. Hopefully, you should be saved. Otherwise, people don't have a prayer. They don't have a prayer. Mentioned last night, most of the known world. We mentioned on Thursday, most of the known world of idolaters. Right? You got the Catholics, and you got the Hindus. That's most of the world. That's almost 5 billion people. Out of 8. That's that's pretty good. That is that's pretty good. That's a pretty good percentage. That's if you do the math, what do you got? You got 62.5%. That means 62.5% of the world get wiped off the face of the map because it's idolatry unless they repent. They have to repent. They don't repent, they're toast, right? But that's 62.5. I won't say 63. 62.5%. That's most of the known world. So if hopefully person's going in the right path and doing the right thing, they'll be saved. They'll be spared. If not, secular Jews, unless they repent, they're in trouble. Idolaters, they don't repent, they're in trouble. It's most of the world, right? It's definitely, definitely most of the world. Somebody mentions probably given one of the worst starts in history. The Messiah could have come a lot earlier. There are many times previously in history that the Messiah could have come, and we weren't worthy, right? Should have come, but if you're not worthy, you're not worthy. I want to say, I don't know, you want to call it a slow start, maybe. You could call it that, right? But, there were times early in history, the time of the giving of the Torah, even before, really, but the time of the giving of the Torah. Why do I say that? Because had the spies not sinned, Jews would have gone straight into the land. They would have wandered for 40 years, go straight into the land, conquer the nation. That should have been it. Should have been it. Even times before, there were people that could have been the Messiah, and certain things they did that God didn't accept, and he knocked them out. He knocked them out of being the Messiah. So, this could have happened thousands of years ago. Thousands of years ago it could have happened. Right? So the problem was that for whatever reason, in these different scenarios, the person wasn't worthy of being the Messiah. Right? You want to call it a slow start, okay. You could call that, but it's a lack in us. If we would, the Gemara says that the temple's been destroyed. Any person, in whatever generation they live in, if they don't rebuild the temples, as if they destroyed it. Now that's kind of a harsh statement, right? That's a very harsh statement. It's a pretty harsh statement. Now the reason is like this. The reason is that what do I have? If we don't rebuild the temple, you'll say previous generations are much greater than us. Maybe much greater than us than we'll be in 10 lifetimes. Okay. But even if that is the truth, we're piggybacking on their mitzvahs. Right? We don't deserve this generation for sure on such a low level that the Messiah shouldn't come for our generation. Right? On a much lower level, much, much lower level. But even if that's true, yeah, the fact that in our generation, or any generation someone lived in, and the temple was not rebuilt, they are part of the blame. Right? That there's collective punishment, as we've said before, in general. But each person has the ability, to reach whatever potential they have. You can say, it's not my fault, look at other people. Okay. But you're still in that generation that rebuild the temple. If you didn't rebuild the temple, it's as if you've, destroyed it. Given someone as very good, given so many false messiahs in history, how are we going to know When he comes, how are we supposed to recognize? It's going to be very clear. How do we know? Right? It's one of the jobs of Elijah the prophet. Right? First of all, everyone's going to know Elijah is Elijah. And one of the things he is going to do is announce the coming of the Messiah. That's what he's going to do. That's one of his jobs. Right? That is one of his jobs, not to mention he's going to answer up a lot of questions that, in the Talmud that we've as questions that we don't have answers to. He's going to come back, give answers to that. He's going to probably tell everybody with the Messiah, I would assume as well, which tribe everyone's from, unless they already know they're a Kohen or a Levite, right? But he's going to be the one that's going to be clear, right? That is going to be that's going to be, that is going to be no doubt. That's one of his jobs. Now, it's interesting enough that everyone in the world, Jews and non-Jews, are going to agree that this is Mashiach Hashem. This is the anointed one of God. Now, what are the non-Jews going to try and do? Right? They're going to try and kill him. Right? Now, there are two Messiahs. One is the Messiah of Joseph. One's the Messiah of David. Messiah of Joseph, right, has his own things to do. A lot of the things he does is help the Messiah of David. One of the things, bringing the exiles, right? Rebuilding the temple. He does other things as well. But there is a question the Gemara asks is, does he die or not? Right? So there's difference of opinion whether he dies or not. Now, if you look at the end of the Passover Haggadah, there are a number of songs that people sing at the end of the Passover Haggadah. One of them is Chad Gadya, right? Chad Gadya, is they're all famous, more or less. Right. So the song itself, talks about a little goat, right? As we say at the end of the Seder, right? Little goat eaten by cats, and again, all these forces that get eaten by the next until the end. God Himself kills the Malcham Avis, i.e., the angel of death, the evil inclination, Mr. S, whatever you want to call him, right? God Himself kills that last power, which is the angel of death. Now, there's a lot there. Especially hidden in Kabbalah, exactly, again, it sounds like, a nice story, this and that, right, about what's going on. So when it talks about the shore, it talks about the ox. The ox represents Yosef, right? He's called an ox. So then it says that the shochet, right, the ritual slaughterer, kills the ox. Now, the whole question with the shochet, who this ritual slaughter is, but the ox represents Yosef Atzadik, represents Joseph. So according to that, simple explanation is he dies, right? Seemingly he would die, right? The angel of death kills the shochet, and God kills the angel of death, right? Now that's what's supposed to happen at the end of the days. There will be no evil inclination. At some point that angel gets destroyed, right? There will be no evil inclination. So I'm just pointing out that what looks like an innocent story, tells a much more deeper story. But you're 100% right. There have been a lot of false messiahs that have, almost destroyed, the Jewish people. One of them, a lot of people thought, Rabbi Kiva thought Bar Kokhba, during the revolt, he thought he was the Messiah until he died, until he was killed. Rabbi Kiva admitted he made a mistake. And the Rambam there learns that from this, the Messiah can't die, meaning the Messiah of David. Right? He may die afterwards, but he's not going to die in this war. Right? He's going to do what he needs to fulfill, and eventually probably die at some point. Not going to live forever. Right? But Rabbi Kiva made that mistake. And when he thought there were many signs that Bar Koziva or Bar Kokhba was the Messiah, and in fact he got killed. So Rabbi Kiva concluded, as the Rambam learns, that you cannot die in the process. One of the things the Messiah cannot do is die. Now, the Messiah of Yosef could die, potentially could die. It's difference of opinion whether he dies or not. Right? Could die, could not die. According to, you want to go according to Chad Gadya, he dies, right? He would die. Seemingly, I don't know, it seems to be, I don't know, it's killed by a unicorn or a cyclops or something. I don't know, some creature seems to end up killing him according to Kabbalah. I don't know exactly what it is. But in any case, we don't know, right? Nobody knows. Nobody knows, right? The Messiah of David, though, has to fulfill certain things, right? He has to build the temple. He has to bring in the exiles, right? He has to bring the exiles, of the Jewish people. And in that process, very clear, he cannot die. He cannot die. Now, so you have, not a small minority, but you have, some people in Chabad that believe that the Rebbe was the Messiah. Okay, so this is kind of a problem, right? So they base on a Gemara later in Sanhedrin that says there was someone from the dead, right? Rashi says there could be, maybe have the characteristics of, let's say, Prophet Daniel or some other people. Doesn't mean he's going to come back from the dead, right? I don't know exactly how they learn it, but right, it's not coming. It says if it would be someone like who was dead, who would he be like? Right? Not that he's coming back from the dead. He might have these leadership qualities, like like Daniel. He might have these, other qualities like whoever. Right? Doesn't mean he's coming back from the dead. Right? So that is a problem, because that we would say it's idolatry. Right? He ain't coming back from the dead. Now, some would say they just have a wacky idea. It's not really idolatry. And that if they would ritually slaughter a cow, you could eat it, right? It's just kind of like a crazy thing in their heads. Others say no. If they ritually slaughter something, you can't eat it. Idolatry, right? Difference of opinion. There's definitely a difference of opinion, but there's a very strong side. I have a lot of respect for Chabad in general, but there's a very strong side to say what they, what that belief is idolatry. That's the way it sounds. It's the way it looks, right? That's definitely the way it looks. But the bottom line is, for everyone else who's mainstream, and that is the Messiah cannot be someone who died. The Messiah of David, right? Or Yosef, doesn't matter. There is a question: the Messiah of Yosef died. Very good, right? Okay, right? The Messiah of David can't die. Not at this point. There are certain things he has to do. If he has not done it, then he can't be the Messiah. Right? So I agree. There have been, you still have, some offshoots of Shabtai Tzvi. Still have, some groups in Turkey or whatever still think he was the Messiah, right? And he's caused a huge split among the Jewish people. Big problem. Right? Very big problem. Image of the cat with wings and whip-like tail. Yeah, that's a different thing. We don't. So I gave. I'm not going to go into it now, but I went through a whole thing. What this Lilith really is? Was it a demon? Wasn't a demon? Right. I do have a Q&A that I did speak about it. Someone asked if someone comes back from his grave, the persons that we were speaking to. Yeah, maybe. Maybe, but again, it's resurrection is not going to take place at that point. It's going to be much later. It's going to be much, much later. So that's a whole different. That's a whole different thing. But the future Messiah is not. It's not coming back. It's not coming from the dead. Now it could be that who have character traits like somebody, like somebody that died. Okay. Right? That's not a contradiction. But it doesn't mean he's coming back from the dead. Now, again, this is a, this is a, this is a problem. Someone asked me about Lilith. That's JIT, Jew in train. It's better to sleep with a non-Jewish girl, or waste seed. Wasting seed's bad for non-Jews, for sure. Right? The easiest proof, and again, it's a major, major difference of opinion. Major difference of opinion for non-Jews. But the easiest proof is Aaron Onan. Aaron Onan were sons of Yehuda, right? That spilled seed, right? Married to Tamar, right? They both spilled seed. What happened? God killed them, Now, what would I understand from that? Spilling seeds, death penalty for non-Jews, right? But again, I'm not, plenty of other people go through this, soup to nuts, and all its details. I'm not going to do that, but I would say it's a major, major difference of opinion whether it's forbidden or not. If someone were to ask me personally, I'd say, yeah, it should be done. Not a good thing to do, right? Even if you say it's not death penalty or whatever, right? It's definitely not a good thing to do. So now the question is, better sleep with a non-Jewish girl or a Jewish girl? Well, if you sleep with a Jewish girl, it's worse. I mean, not worse for you, it's worse for them. That's putting a stumbling block in front of them. So it better be with a non-Jew, right? Certainly better be with a non-Jew. A Jew is not allowed to be with a non-Jew in any case. Might be a rabbinic prohibition, might be a Torah prohibition, depends, right? Depends, right? There's a different question for a Jew. Who's it worse to be with if they're not married, right? A Jew or a non-Jew, right? So whatever, that's the whole question. That's the whole question. It's definitely forbidden to be with a non-Jew. That's no question, right? The question is, is it Torah obligation or rabbinic obligation? But it would seem it's Torah obligation. That it would be, that it would be forbidden. What about a Jew marries a non-Jew? They don't keep family purity law. So then, if they have a child, the child will call ben nida, which is an offspring of a woman who didn't go to the mikvah, right? So they're known to be more wild, more brazen, different things, and it doesn't mean a person can't overcome it. There was a story. A friend of my Rebbe, when he was obviously much younger, was there was a shidduch. Someone was mentioned to him, a woman that became religious and was the product of parents that did not keep family purity laws. So they went to the Chazon Ish. My Rebbe went to the Chazon Ish, asked him this question: is it something you should look into? I mean, this woman was very strong in her beliefs and modesty and all that. And so the Chazon Ish said, Rav Arva Yeshaya Karowitz, blessed memory, from Torah Giants, the last generation, no question. And he says, well, she's going the right direction. And she's working hard on modesty and other things, then it's not a problem. He held it wasn't a problem. Now, Moshe Feinstein, a blessed memory, probably knocked out a lot of these problems, because even if two Jews got married, for two Jews to get married, to be a halachic, quote unquote, wedding, you need two witnesses. You need two kosher witnesses, right? Two witnesses that keep Shabbos, right? Which would have to see a giving of the ring, right? They have to see giving of the ring, and if they were by themselves or whatever, watch them, whatever. But Ramosha Feinstein said you'll never have that. And all these weddings are not a wedding at all. It's not considered, a Jewish marriage in general. Why not? Why not? Because you never had kosher witnesses. Now, even in this case, what we call a ben or a bat nida, right? Someone, a boy or a girl that came from this relationship where the mother never went to the mikveh, right? So Moshe Feinstein said, who said she never went to the sea? Maybe she went to the sea one day, right? She went to the ocean. Ocean be considered a mikveh. Who says, if she took a shower, right? It's enough water coming on. I'm not saying it's a kosher mikveh per se, but you can get out of the problem that way. So 90% or more, usually if a mamzer is a child that never should have been born. It's two people that should never be together. It's a forbidden relationship. So, if both had kosher, marriages or whatever, so then that would be a much more serious problem. But today, it's very rare to find such a case, right? It's a child born that's from a union that never should have been. That's a forbidden union. And with a forbidden union, in this case, they can only marry someone of the same union, or a convert. And the reason is because they have a problem with the pedigree, right? The pedigree is blemished. So a non-Jew, even if they convert, even if they have the status of a newborn child, they don't have a pedigree because they were born as a non-Jew. So since they don't have a pedigree, they can marry someone of that, someone of that union, or someone's been, someone else who's also part of a similar union, right? They can all also get married. So Moshe Feinstein knocked that problem on, because most people who get married, Jews that got married, probably don't have kosher witnesses. They don't have kosher witnesses, it's not a valid Jewish marriage, so it knocks out the whole problem. Probably knocks out, I would say, 99%, of all the problems. So he wasn't addressing the other issue about a ben nida, about someone, his mother never went to the mikveh, but that was a different issue, because he said at some point she probably went to, she went to the ocean. She went to the ocean at some point. Probably take her out of the problem of being of a ben nida. But, even so, the person's going in the right direction, regardless of what the spiritual fallout is of the person's DNA in that case, then, as the Chazon Ish said, and, he's definitely someone you can rely on, in the shadow of a doubt, the Chazon Ish said that, the person's going in the right direction, they're strong in their beliefs, whatever, then they could date. Then, it's not considered, wouldn't be considered a flaw. Yeah, so that's what I would say. That's what I would say about that. But again, at the end of the day, at the end of the day, what do you see? What do you see? That these things have repercussions. There are physical repercussions when people do things. A woman, God forbid, smokes crack when she's pregnant. Child can come out deformed. It's not the child's fault, but there is a spiritual. There's a physical reality. But just like there's a physical reality, there's a spiritual reality. Right? A Jew, let's say, a Jew that doesn't keep kosher, right? It's very hard for them to hear anything about Torah. They are what we call apathetic. Someone who's apathetic, very, very hard to change. Very, very hard to change. Right? When I say hard to change, I mean that they don't want to hear Torah. They're not interested in hearing Torah. It's like I would say in my language, it's like trying to start a Jeep with a 9-volt, right? You want to start a Humvee with a 9-volt. It's never going to work, right? Not, unless that 9-volts are like really powerful, but it's never going to happen, right? So they're apathetic. They don't want to hear about Torah. They're not interested in hearing about Torah. The reason is because the Gemara says it affects the person, and what does it do? It dulls the soul, right? For a Jew, not for a non-Jew. It doesn't apply to a non-Jew. For a Jew, even though non-Jews will say, I want to eat kosher meat and clean animals and this and that. Okay, but for a non-Jew, it doesn't affect them. Kli Yakar says in the laws of Kachas, Leviticus Chapter 10 or Chapter 11, where he says over there that a non-Jew is never going to do anything that doesn't make logical sense. So you see, says the Kli Yakar there, one of the great commentaries on Chumash, says that you see a non-Jew eats all kinds of creepy crawly things, right? It doesn't affect them, right? Some places in the Far East, they'll eat anything that moves, right? So you see, it doesn't affect them. It doesn't affect them in any way, maybe, except for eating bats in Wuhan, but that might be a different issue. But even so, even with that, yeah. So the Kli Yakar says, why would a non-Jew do it? In other words, it doesn't make rational sense. Like eating a placebo. So I say, okay, you want to eat a placebo, good. Now, someone is in the process of conversion, I would say, yeah, you gotta, you should start keeping kosher, at some point. I wouldn't do it a few weeks before conversion, right? Just definitely should start doing it. Even if it doesn't have an effect, so what? Even, it's not going to affect, a non-Jew, certainly like a Jew, and someone could say, well, Judaism, for a Jew, science never proven it. Okay. There are 1.5 million things science never proven, doesn't matter. Right? It doesn't mean it's not true, but the Gemara says someone who eats this garbage, right? A Jew that eats this garbage, they're affected. They are affected, it dulls their spirit. In my language, what does it mean to dull the spirit? It means they're apathetic. That's what it means. So somebody like that, Like you ask someone, you ask someone and say, well, did you ever think about, God, Torah, mitzvahs? No. Did you ever think about, like meaning of what? No. Did you ever think about like why you should keep kosher? No. Like they're just dead. They're brain dead. They're like, because of all the garbage they eat, it affects the way they think. They don't have anything to do with Judaism or very little. Why? Because it makes them apathetic. It's not like they think they know. They're not claiming, oh, I know so much, right? That's, had someone tell that many times. I may not be so knowledgeable. Good. End the conversation right there. Don't even open up your mouth further. Because all it is speculation with a capital S. All it is speculation. Don't waste my time, right? I mean, you got to be nice, but don't waste my time. Stop right there. Well, I may not be so knowledgeable, right? So you're big ignoramus with a big I. Keep your big mouth shut. What do I care what your opinion is? Well, I think this. Then it comes out. Then you have to be there, when you say bad things happen to good people, you got to sit there and listen to this garbage. Oh, I think, Saturn was out of orbit. And that's why, all these things happened, in Egypt and all the miracles because Saturn was out of orbit. Really? I mean, there is such an opinion. There is such an opinion out there. Right? I don't think it's so in vogue today, but like, would you bet every last penny you have in the bank on that? Or you just like throw it out like it's dead? Saturn was out of orbit. And what did it do? What did it do? Like what are the ramifications? Like people just sound idiotic. But you gotta sit there and say, oh, really? Saturn's out of orbit, so what does that mean? What are the repercussions? No, it's stupid. But when someone says that, end the conversation. Just end the conversation. Because what they're going to say has no relevance at all. Well, my opinion is this. Okay. Based on, I had this conversation with somebody. Somebody absolutely hammered me about something. They made a statement. And I don't care. And this is what I think. Okay. So I said, based on. I said, maybe you have a medrash that says like that. Let's talk about intermarriage. Yeah. I said, maybe you have a medrash that says like that. Maybe you have a Gemara that says like that. I mean, listen, I'm not a world expert. I'm not going to claim to be a world expert and everything. So I said, maybe you got something. Maybe you got something I haven't heard of, I haven't seen. Why ain't the marriage is okay? Like, so you know what the person said. So the person said, it's right here. It's in my heart. Right here. And I'm like, right here what? It's in the heart. So that's what my heart tells me. Okay. Didn't we just say what the mind sees? Sorry, what a person sees? It goes into a person's thoughts and it gets to the heart. And the heart desires. So of course they don't want to say it's wrong. I mean, they did admit it's wrong. They admitted intermarriage was wrong. That was good. Person of the older generation admitted it was wrong. Good. But I would never disinherit or whatever, not have contact with a grandson, granddaughter, whatever, because they did it. Oh, that's the difference. But they admit it's wrong. Okay, it's a good start. And that's just wrong to do. Forget whether you should try and draw them close or not draw them close or whatever, because that's what my heart tells me. Well, I have other sources that say it's the worst transgression you could do. Use your status as a Jew. There's no way to repent unless you get divorced, the person dies. Yeah. I don't care. That's what my heart tells me. You know what my heart tells me? You're talking to a brick. Okay. Right? That's part of something I had to go through and listen to. So I was respectful, but I said so. Just show me a source, show me something. Show me something. At least this person was alive. Everyone else is like, brain dead. They're like going, they got the claws out. They're ready to like draw blood. Okay. But show me a proof. Show me something. That's okay. Let's have a discussion. This is kind of interesting. This is kind of interesting. Come on. Let's see. Show me what you got. Give me your best shot. That was the answer. My heart tells me. Like your heart tells you. Words in your heart, the Gemara says, don't mean anything in general. Devarim Baalei ve'eno devarim. Words don't mean anything. So who cares? Who cares what your heart says? Who cares what your mind says? Is it permissible or not? No. Good. We agree on that. It's not permissible. And should I encourage it? Should I invite them over for dinner? Wow, it's so nice to be with you. So nice, whatever. Try and be, draw them close. Okay, this is a whole discussion. Yeah. But many rabbinic authorities say it's nothing to do. They've done it, they're out. Sad. How much connection are you going to have? Yeah, it's hard. Okay. But you can't acknowledge it. Can't say it's a good thing. Yeah. Have that conversation. What's done is done. Doesn't mean it's right. So what? What's done is done. It's irrelevant. Is it forbidden? It's not forbidden. Yes, it's forbidden. Okay. Are there ramifications? No one wants to hear them. So I connected to a link back in a chain. Very good. I got 3,000 years of history and more behind me. So we'll say that chain got broken. We'll call it America. Yeah. That chain got broken. So I'm reconnecting that chain. You broke the chain, not me. I came back. I'm making that chain hopefully stronger. You want me to acknowledge it? I'm going to acknowledge it. It's wrong. My kids didn't deserve it. You're right. They probably didn't. But it's not their fault. It's your fault. You did it. Not your wife's fault. You did it. There are ramifications. So they think you're a nut and you're this and you're that. Okay, so I believe in a higher power. The higher power says you can't do it. And it's forbidden. That's it. No ifs, ands, or buts. Forbidden. And that's it. What do you want? You want to say maybe it was for that generation. Maybe it was only the generation going into the land of Israel. Okay. So the person said, you can see smoke coming out of their ears. You're a fanatic and you're a nut. I said, of course I'm a nut. I'm a lot worse than a nut. Give me an answer. Show me. What are things I don't know? I'm willing to entertain the possibility. Show me a medrash. Show me Gemara. Show me this. Show me that. But isn't the Torah saying, 6, 7, 10, 12 times, don't marry a non-Jew? The Torah's pretty clear. I believe in the Torah. You want to say Torah's racist? Okay. God is racist? Okay. But tell me what it means. Don't give me Webster's 8th definition. Tell me what it means. And tell me why I should accept it. Because that's the single biggest problem of the Jewish people today. Mentioned it many times. Single biggest problem. 60% into marriage, 70% into marriage, sometimes even higher. In Berlin at the time, before the war, 80% into marriage. That, Jewish illiteracy is the biggest problem. Still is the biggest problem. Tell people all the time, either you look like me or you disappear. 90% of world Jewry will disappear if they don't repent. No matter what they know, what they don't know, how they're going to get judged or whatever. Okay, God will deal with that. Why should God save them? The Torah says, the book of Leviticus, Torah says, I took you out of Egypt to distinguish you between the non-Jews. And what does God say? I took you out to distinguish you because what? Because I gave you kosher animals to eat and non-kosher animals to stay away from. What do you think? I took you out of Egypt to eat shrimp? Really? Right? To eat lobster and all these other things? No, I made you different. You got to be different. Oh, you don't want to be different? What did I take you out of Egypt for? 90% of world Jewry does not know Shema Yisrael. Now, some people say a lot of these people are going to come back before the end of days. Okay, let's see. I'm a big pessimist, capital P. I don't see it. I see these people are going to be wiped off the face of the map. Whoever keeps Shabbos, kashrus, and is trying to keep, a Jewish life, they'll be saved. That's it. I don't care what they know, what they don't know. Right? Everybody knows, unless if you're associated with the synagogue, you're not allowed to marry a non-Jew. Period. Everybody knows that. They'll say, oh, it's so old, and it doesn't matter. And no, it doesn't. Okay, but on the books. If you would ask a question, see, I can be obnoxious here. Ask a question, yes or no. Is a Jew allowed to marry a non-Jew? If you ask someone who's associated with the synagogue, are they allowed to marry Jew or non-Jew? Yes or no? No, but no, I said there are no buts. There are no buts. Yes or no? No. Why? So I had this conversation with somebody, and I said, you're a racist, right? Never saying I was a racist in general, but I call this Jew a secular Jew. I call him a secular Jew. It's more traditional probably, but whatever. I said, you're a racist. He says, why? I said, why do you say intermarriage is wrong? I said, what do you mean? Jews shouldn't marry non-Jews. I said, right. I said, but why? I said, if you don't give me a reason why, you just say because, we're better or whatever, that makes you a racist. You hate non-Jews. So he says, but you also believe you shouldn't marry non-Jews. I said, you're right. So why do you believe you shouldn't marry non-Jews? Because God said so. Because my Torah says don't marry non-Jews, period. That's what it says. Any translation says you're not allowed to do it. That's it. There's no commentary here. Finished. You're out. Everybody knows that. Or they'll tell you why it doesn't apply. They'll give you Webster's 8th definition. They'll tell you 1.5 million different things that don't matter. They're so nice family, whatever. Look what they bring to the table. Come on. There's a joke out there. It's a sad joke. I mean, a lot of people laugh on porn when I told them this because I was dressed up as Trump. But I said, what's the difference between Trump and a Reform rabbi? Yeah, what's the difference? Trump's grandkids are Jewish, but he's got a daughter that converted. Yeah, everybody burst out laughing. No one heard it. I said, come on, you never heard this joke? It's classic. Yeah. But listen, you got Clinton married, daughter married to a Jew. You got all these people, made it high in society and politics and married a Jew. It's horrific. Horrific. Better they be anti-Semites, not allowed married Jews. That is the single biggest problem. The single biggest problem. It's not about what we do to non-Jews and about Noahites and in fighting between Orthodox Jews. They're all problems. They're all problems. I'm not saying they're small problems. This is the single biggest problem. Single biggest problem. That there are Jews out there don't know Aleph Beis. That's a scary thought. It's a very, very scary thought. Yeah. Someone says they are like them. Someone maintain a little bit of connection to Torah. Okay, so what? They keep kosher? Probably not. Most secular Jews don't keep kosher. Majority of secular Jews, they don't keep kosher. Yeah, they don't keep anything. They'll say they fast on Yom Kippur. Okay, but I was learning that for Yom Kippur to atone, even if you fast, you have to believe that Yom Kippur atones for my sins. You could fast for 60 years, 70 years, or more on Yom Kippur, but if you don't believe that Yom Kippur atones, it doesn't atone. Now, that makes sense. That makes sense. Because you got to believe in it. Same thing, if a person's suffering, and they say, woe to me, I'm suffering, and whatever, if they don't believe the suffering is because of sin, you don't get atonement, either. According to the Mabit, brings down in Beis Elokim. Also, right? Now, someone here points out, good, I'm glad you mentioned it. Yeah, few good individuals that are Jews, even if they're secular. Now, that's a loaded statement. I'll tell you why it's a loaded statement. There are a lot of nice people out there. A lot of good-meaning people out there. We don't care if they're good-meaning or not. We care how do they act when it comes to God's law. I don't care what they know, what they don't know, how they're going to get judged, doesn't matter. How do they look in God's eyes? Are they smelling like a rose, even if they're nice, quote-unquote people? Guaranteed. There are 1.5 million things they do wrong. Guaranteed. Person get upstairs after around 20 years, and they're going to see all the suffering they're going to have to go through. Said, why? Look at all the people, that think I'm a nice guy. So I'm going to put on my George Burns funny glasses, my funny mustache. I'm going to play God, and I'm going to sit there and look like this. You're a nice guy. Didn't you ever hear nice guys finish last? Right? Nice guys finish last. You're a nice guy. What does that matter? What matters is what you do. How did you interact with others? Did you give charity? Did you keep kosher? Did you keep Shabbos? Did you keep a Passover Seder? Come on, so many secular Jews keep a Passover Seder. They do something for Passover, very good. You know what? Passover says it's got to be at night. And now it's daylight savings all over, right? So now it's an hour later. They say, I don't want to start at 9 o'clock at night. I was just saying, Friday night, he sat down in the middle, like says, it's like 8 o'clock, right? You're making Kiddush. Right? We didn't take in Shabbos early. Most places it's very late, so people take in Shabbos early. On a festival, we can't do that. On Passover, we can't do that. So everyone's going to be late. Right? You can get home from synagogue 8 o'clock. 8:15, let's say. You start the Seder. It's late. Okay, so you say halachic midnight is like, it's 12:30, very good. You got 4 hours to eat the meal, go through the Haggadah, and eat the Afikomen. Yeah, okay. So, you got to say what you got to say. You got to go through it or whatever. But some people don't want to do that. They don't want to start so late. How can I start my meal so late? I'll start at 5 o'clock, 5:30, 6. Let's say they start at 6 o'clock. Very good. They got to work. They come, whatever. Let's make the Seder. They start at 6 o'clock. What's the problem? They go through the 4 cups. They go through the Haggadah. They eat the matzah. It's not even sundown. It's the wrong day. The road is paved with good intentions. No good intentions here. You can say, but I ate the matzah. Yeah, it's a good thing I'm not God, isn't it? I say you're out of your cotton picking head. You ate it on the wrong day. It's not at night. The Torah says clear. All the Karaites will love me. No commentary here. The Torah says got to be at night. When is night? When you see 3 stars. And what if it's cloudy? Good. So 3 stars about half an hour, 40 minutes after, after sundown. That's the earliest you can start. Now you're going to pray the evening service. Okay, let's say that's the earliest you can start. So let's say sundown, right? Sundown here is going to be, let's say, 7:10. Let's say it's 7:10, 7:15. So you can't start the Seder. The earliest you could is, let's say, 7:45, 7:50. It's still late, right? Still not so early. So a person starts at 6, they're done by 7:30. Yeah? So maybe they get in a cup or two, maybe by sundown. Probably not. That's insane. They're going to get upstairs and says, well, I kept the Passover Seder. God's going to say, no, you didn't do it right. You did it on the wrong day. You got to say it was not their fault. They didn't know. Okay, God will judge it how he judges it. Right? I'm just pointing out the idiocy. Or I'll tell you another story. Got a million of these stories. Someone wants to say Kaddish for their mother. A woman, for the matter where the woman should or say the mourner's prayer for the Yortzeit for when commemorate the day she died. Okay. Forget about whether she should or not. So her synagogue is the same time all year round. They pray the evening service 7 o'clock. So in the winter, not a problem. According to anybody, sundown is early. Sundown can be at 4:30. Sundown can be 5 o'clock. Sundown can be, anywhere in between. You're not going to have necessarily a problem. Shouldn't have a problem most of the winter. What happens in summer? Daylight savings, Yortzeit's in July. So what time is sundown? In a lot of places, it could be 8 o'clock. Could be 8:30. Could be later, right? You live in England, God forbid, right? No offense to anyone who lives in England, right? Could be even later, right? It'd be 9 o'clock, 9:30, crazy times. Crazy times when the sun goes down. Yeah? But their synagogue prays at the same time all year round. So they're going to go and they're going to say the mourner's prayer for their mother. Very good. It's the wrong day. But again, they have the right intention. Yeah, they want to, quote unquote, do the right thing. So Kaufman's law is either you do it right or you don't bother. That's it. You want to make a travesty of a mockery of a sham? That's what you'll be. That's what your Judaism will look like. You want to be the real deal? Okay, you can say you took my class and you suffered enough. Very good. You go straight into, paradise. You don't have to suffer anymore. You'll thank me for that later, right? But at the end of the day, either do it right or don't bother. Because it's not going to be worth anything. Not just the Orthodox won't accept it. Think about it. They do all kinds. I'm just going over a couple of things here. Basic things. It's the wrong day. Don't you think, for the sake of your mother, go somewhere else to pray, where it's later, where it's actually going to be the right day? Doesn't matter. That's when we pray. That's what we do. So you know what that's called? That's called Torah made up in my own mind. I would call it Torah in America, but you can call it Torah anywhere else. No difference. Doesn't matter where you are. A watered down version is exactly that. And if that's what a person wants, okay, that's what you get. And you want to pass that down to your kids, you pass down a watered, dinky little version of that, they'll never keep it. They'll never keep it. Because it's watered down. They'll do less than you did. Much less. I know someone says, I have to make a Passover Seder because if I don't, my kids won't do it. Okay. But they're not going to do it right anyway. So is it better to do it? Maybe someone's going to get inspired. Maybe someone will do it. Maybe. Yeah. So I used to say, I used to be, much more fanatical when I was younger. I would say, that's not going to do anything. Part of me still says that. Even for the kids or whatever, they're going to have, they're going to have something. If we wouldn't do it, they wouldn't do it. Okay, so they wouldn't do it. Yeah. The part of me would say, so what? They won't do it. And the one you're doing is any better? It's a joke, right? It's an absolute joke. Right? I'll tell you another story. I was at a Passover Seder. I was only holding one day because when I was in the States. And the second Seder somebody made, so I had to be there. Whatever. I wasn't really participating, but anyway, I had to be there. And there was a maid helping clean up or whatever, and helping serve. And whatever, they were going through the Seder, singing certain things, and this woman was singing at the same time. She knew all these songs. I'm like, there's something wrong here. How does this non-Jewish woman know these songs? I'm not saying they weren't like Jewish melodies, let's say. So this non-Jewish woman singing along. I'm like, there's something wrong with this. There's something wrong with this picture. I'll tell you one other story. I had to be Menachem Avil to I was in a mourner's house. They only held 2 days, really 7 days, except you don't sit on Shabbos for someone you're obligated to mourn for, mother, father, sister, brother, God forbid, a child or a spouse. And they anyway, so I went. I traveled one day. I traveled one day, to go there. I was only there for whatever, less than 24 hours, whatever. So anyway, there were a lot of people there. And then the quote unquote rabbi gets there first, to lead some sort of service there. So all of a sudden, can't make this up. All of a sudden, the person walks in, rumor has it there's going to be some sort of service. People started leaving in droves. People started running out the door like no tomorrow. So I told someone tongue in cheek, I said, you want to get people to leave? People hanging around too long? You need time to rest? I said, I got a great idea. Just tell people you're going to come pray. Come on, I haven't had anything to drink yet. Tell people you're going to come pray and watch everybody disappear. That's what happened. That's exactly what happened. And they were exactly, it's funny, because I was there, I couldn't obviously participate in this quote unquote service. So there was a non-Jew there that was helping clean up and said or whatever. And they said, what's going on? I was like, you don't want to watch. I said, I think they're gonna pray, but whatever. You want to watch? You can watch. You can probably follow. It's probably all in English anyway. But I said, oh, yeah, I'll be in the back room getting something to eat or something. I can't even watch it. It's just like a travesty of a mockery of a sham. But it was I laughed because it's sad. It's extremely sad. But the service was what it was. But the vast majority of people, when they heard that, dashed for the door. Made a beeline for the door. You can't make this stuff up. I saw it with my own eyes. Right? Kids say, oh, you're exaggerating. Oh, no. There were a handful of people left. And then what happened after the service and, everybody left, right? It was, football season started, so, you turn on the TV. So, fact is always greater than fiction, but whatever, it's fact. This is what Judaism is. to them, not too much, no, not too little. So you bring that up. Yeah, you bring that up. So yeah, they can be very nice people. Okay. But the bottom line is, how do they, how do they smell in God's eyes? They probably stink to high heaven. They can be nice people. Nice people don't make it to heaven. They don't make it to the next one because you got to do something, right? You got to keep what you're supposed to keep. It's not a joke. Not a 5-year option to renew. Not like I feel like doing it. I don't feel like doing it. Either you do it right or you don't do it. Just don't bother. I'll end with this story because it's kind of funny. And sad at the same time. I have a relative getting older in years, married somebody. And one of the conditions to get married was she had to convert to Christianity. Yeah. So someone said, well, it's very interesting because now they'll know nothing about either religion, which is probably true. Yeah. I mean, it's very sad commentary, but it's true. It's very true. Right. The same person actually, before they get married, they said, would you ever do, if you're a rabbi, would you ever do a marriage ceremony? I said, yeah, only if 2 Jews are involved. They have to be 2 Jews. I don't do intermarriages. Like, she'd laugh, but she'd be crying. She'd be like, sitting on the floor, like, it's teshuvah, was like the 9th of Av, like, in mourning. I mean, like, brings back memories. Yeah, but like, oh, you're one of those. You're one of these wackos. No, we believe the Torah is true. And the Torah is not a piece of silly putty, right? It's not silly putty. You don't turn it into a pretzel. Don't pass go, don't collect 200, right? Monopoly, right? Forget it. Either you do it right and you make it right. And, God's help, you have generations afterwards going in the right direction. Is that a guarantee? Nothing's a guarantee. Life, the only 2 guarantees of life, death, and taxes, not necessarily in that order, right? But if you go in the right direction, you get a lot of heavenly help. Lot of heavenly help. Right. But if you do it haphazard, that's what you look like. That's what your kids will look like. If you have kids, you want to pass it down, okay. You have to know how, you have to know how to give it over and whatever. But at the same time, if it's done as a joke, it'll be a joke. Right. And it shouldn't be a joke. I mean, I've countless stories I've just seen over the years that tonight says my last story. One other story. When I was becoming religious, so my parents' synagogue was a conservative synagogue. So someone had asked me, so I'm much, much, much older, and he said, do you really believe in all this stuff? Now, I guess this person came, to services just, I don't know, more as a social thing, more, could be for, a social event or whatever. It's like, do you really believe in this? So listen, I ticked off a lot of people changing my life. I said, if I didn't believe in it, then, I'm barking up the wrong tree. I said, I wouldn't have ticked off so many people if I didn't believe it was true. Right. And again, this gets on the whole thing of making up a new religion, and all that. You stick to what's true. Right. And even people are going to hate you and, whatever, it doesn't matter. You have to do, what's right. You have to have proper guidance. Right. Obviously. And, there are many times, Mary told me to do X, Y, Z, whatever it was. When I listened, I didn't come out smelling like a rose. It's hard. Got slammed, got hammered, all the, for many things. People gave up on me. So thank God. I don't hear too much of it, but you got to be strong. And that's, when a person learns strong, they stay strong. But, we have trials, tribulations, all kinds of things we go through in life. And, it makes it harder, but you gotta just keep plugging away and you got to keep to the truth. Yeah. Let me see any other questions. That was my last story. Any other questions here? Sora says that finding incredible much well, let me tell you better. I was telling someone today, who did he or telling someone yesterday, he was connected. He's probably the last person in the generation that saw Rav Chanan Wasserman, Hashem Yikam Damo, famous student of Chofetz Chaim, the head of the Shiva in Baranovich. He saw him as a kid. He's probably one of the few people, one of the last people in the generation saw him. He's almost 100. I mean, Rebbe just turned 99, right? He saw the Chazon Ish, he saw the discipler, Chaim Kanievsky's father, he saw the Satmar Rav, he saw Rachel Weinberg, the 3-day age, he saw Rav Mordechai Pogramansky, brings him down a lot, right, in his Parsha sheet. He saw everybody. I mean, like, all the Torah giants of the last generation. He saw. Once he was telling, he's telling me, like, all these people that he saw, I was connected to this one and that one, and, and all these, and he looked at me, and he's like, look, I even know you. It's like, you even know me? It's like, wow, what a great thing. It's like, not so great. Not so great, but I even know you. I mean, who he's connected to? Is pretty incredible. All right, I'm going to stop here. I do this every Sunday, back at normal time here, 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock Eastern time, 4 o'clock Israel time. Anyone has any questions, find me on Facebook at Chaim Kaufman, Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism, orthodoxconversion.com, Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism on YouTube. There I got videos on Q&As, Ethics of Our Fathers, Book of Leviticus. You want to send me an email, Rabbi Kaufman at gmail.com, RBBICHIMCOFFMAN at gmail.com. Wish everyone good beginning.